The first step in configuring the SimpleSat Look Down program for use with the rotor is to click on the Setup button in the main window. The familiar Setup window will appear, and down in the lower right hand corner is a checkbox labeled Rotor Control. If you plan on using rotor control with your program, just click on this box. When you've done that, close the window by clicking here. Now this would only really need to be done once. The only other time you might want to do anything with this particular control is if you don't plan on using rotor control. When we come back to the main window, we can see a new button appears labeled Rotor. If we click on the Rotor button, a couple of things appear. One is a cluster of controls related to use of the rotor. The first two are used to set the COM port and baud rate. Now what will be displayed here is a list of the valid COM ports that are on your computer. Select the one for your rotor controller and then select the baud rate over here. These next two controls are used for parking the rotor. If you have a particular orientation that you like to put your rotor in when you're not using it, just enter the azimuth and elevation into these two boxes. So if you wanted it pointing south at 0, just put them in there. These values will be saved. Then to park your rotor, just click on the Park button. The next little cluster of controls here is for manually moving your rotor. You can put in the azimuth and elevation for the location you wish to move the rotor to and click on the Move button. These values will not be saved. They are extremely handy for testing, and they might be useful if you want to say orient your antenna for a terrestrial contact or pre-orient your rotor for a satellite pass. These two boxes down here are the minimum change for move settings. Now you don't want your rotor to move every time the azimuth changes by 1/10 of a degree. Or even in most cases 1 degree. This is hard on your rotor, hard on your mechanical systems. So we can enter in a minimum change before the rotor will actually move. These values will be saved. So if you didn't want the rotor to move so often, you could maybe change this to 5 degrees azimuth. And if you wanted to change the elevation, just click it here. These values are saved, these values are saved, and these values are saved. Normally, in most cases, you'd only have to do this once. So we can close the rotor control window by clicking on the rotor button again. Now you may have noticed this little checkbox over here that says control. Now what this refers to is whether the SimpleSat Look Down program will actually control your rotor. So if you want the SimpleSat Look Down program to control your rotor, you check this box. This means that when a satellite comes into view, you can count on, hopefully count on the program to move your rotor and track the satellite. It will actually move your rotor about 90 seconds roughly before the satellite comes into view. This allows time for your rotor to swing around and get into position. So I think that's it. It's a fairly simple thing. Um, if it works with your rotor controller, that's great. If it doesn't, you might want to take a look at SAT PC32, which from my experience is about the only program out there that works with everything. In any event, have fun. 73s from W9KE.